The story of Iran and Israel is one of the most dramatic reversals in modern history. These two powerful countries, located in the heart of the Middle East, did not always see each other as enemies. For many years they were quiet partners, working together on matters of security and trade. Their relationship was built on shared interests and a common understanding of the political landscape around them. They both saw certain Arab nationalist movements as a threat and sought allies outside of the Arab world. This practical alliance, though not widely publicized, was a significant feature of the region's politics for decades, shaping decisions and strategies in both Tehran and Tel Aviv. Today, however, that picture of cooperation has completely vanished. The friendship has been replaced by a deep and bitter rivalry that affects the entire Middle East. Iran and Israel now view each other as their primary existential threat, a danger that must be contained at all costs. This hostility plays out in political speeches, in international forums, and most dangerously, in conflicts across the region. Understanding how this incredible transformation happened is key to understanding the modern Middle East. The journey from friends to foes is a complex tale involving revolutions, shifting ideologies, and a long and bloody struggle for regional dominance. This essay will explore the long and complicated history between Iran and Israel. We will look back at the time when they were partners, examining the reasons for their cooperation. Then, we will focus on the pivotal event that changed everything, the 1979 Iranian Revolution. We will explain how this revolution transformed Iran from a monarchy friendly to the West into an Islamic republic that opposed Israel. The story will cover how Iran became a champion of the Palestinian cause and how the two nations began fighting each other indirectly through other groups and in other countries, a concept known as proxy warfare. The conflict has become more open and direct in recent years, with both sides striking each other's interests and personnel. We will look at these recent escalations, including events in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza, which have brought the two nations to the brink of a full-scale war. Finally, we will consider the future of their relationship. We will discuss why peace seems so difficult to achieve in the current climate and how their enduring rivalry continues to shape the destiny of millions of people across the Middle East. This is a story of how political change can turn a friend into a sworn enemy. Before 1979, the world looked very different, and so did the relationship between Iran and Israel. Under the rule of the Pahlavi dynasty, led by the Shah, Iran was a monarchy with close ties to the United States and the West. Following Israel's establishment in 1948, Iran became the second Muslim-majority country, after Turkey, to officially recognize the new state. This was a practical decision, not one based on a deep ideological bond. The leaders in both Tehran and Jerusalem saw benefits in working together. For Israel, this was part of its periphery doctrine, a strategy to build alliances with non-Arab nations on the edges of the Middle East to counter the hostility of its immediate Arab neighbors. This partnership grew quietly over the years, covering many important areas. One of the most significant aspects of their cooperation was oil. Iran became a major supplier of oil to Israel, which was crucial for Israel's energy security. They even co-financed and operated a secret pipeline to transport Iranian oil from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. Beyond energy, their cooperation extended to military and intelligence matters. Israel's famous intelligence agency, the Mossad, helped to train Savak, the Shah's secret police. This security relationship was built on a shared perception of threats, particularly from the Soviet Union and the powerful Arab nationalist movements led by figures like Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser. While their governments worked closely together, the relationship was kept mostly out of the public eye. The Shah of Iran was careful not to anger the broader Arab and Muslim world, where support for the Palestinian cause was strong. Therefore, while Israel had a de facto embassy in Tehran, it operated more like a trade mission. This allowed both countries to gain the benefits of their alliance without causing a major political backlash. For the Shah, the connection to Israel was also a way to strengthen his country's relationship with the United States, which was Israel's most important ally. It was a partnership of convenience, driven by cold, hard strategic calculations. During this period of friendship, the Palestinian issue was not a central concern for Iran's government. The Shah's foreign policy was focused on national interests, regional stability that favored his rule, and containing the influence of rival powers. The plight of the Palestinians, while a major issue for Arab nations, did not guide Tehran's decision-making process. This pragmatic approach allowed Iran and Israel to maintain a stable and mutually beneficial relationship for nearly 3 decades. It was a unique and often overlooked chapter in Middle Eastern history, one that would come to a sudden and dramatic end with the winds of revolution. The year 1979 marks the single most important turning point in the relationship between Iran and Israel. In that year, a massive popular uprising, known as the Islamic Revolution, swept across Iran. The revolution overthrew the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and ended centuries of monarchy in the country. A new leader emerged, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a charismatic Shia cleric who had been exiled for his opposition to the Shah. He returned to Iran and established the Islamic Republic, a new form of government based on his interpretation of Islamic law and principles. This event did not just change Iran, it sent shockwaves across the Middle East and the world. The new government in Iran had a completely different worldview from the one it replaced. Ayatollah Khomeini and his followers were deeply anti-Western and particularly hostile toward the United States and Israel. The United States was labeled the Great Satan, seen as an imperialist power that had propped up the Shah's oppressive regime. Israel was called the Little Satan, viewed as an illegitimate state and an outpost of American influence in the Middle East. This new ideology was not just rhetoric, it became the foundation of Iran's foreign policy. The practical, security-based alliance that the Shah had built with Israel was now seen as a betrayal of Islamic values. One of the first symbolic acts of the new regime was to cut all ties with Israel. The once discreet Israeli mission in Tehran was shut down and, in a powerful gesture, its keys were handed over to the Palestine Liberation Organization, the main representative of the Palestinian people. This single act announced to the world that Iran's stance had fundamentally changed. The country that was once a quiet partner of Israel was now its declared enemy. Ayatollah Khomeini also established Quds Day, an annual event held on the last Friday of Ramadan, to rally global support for the Palestinians and to call for the liberation of Jerusalem, or Al-Quds in Arabic. This radical shift was driven by a new vision for Iran's role in the world. Khomeini wanted Iran to be the leader of the entire Muslim world, not just a regional power. By taking up the Palestinian cause, which resonated deeply with Muslims everywhere, he could challenge the traditional leadership of Arab states like Saudi Arabia and Egypt. He reframed the conflict with Israel from a purely Arab-Israeli issue into a broader religious struggle between Islam and what he saw as Western-backed oppression. This ideological transformation set Iran and Israel on a collision course, turning them from former friends into bitter and uncompromising foes. After the 1979 revolution, supporting the Palestinian cause became a central pillar of Iran's foreign policy. This was a dramatic shift from the Shah's era, when the government had shown little interest in the issue. The new Islamic Republic, under Ayatollah Khomeini, saw the Israeli-Palestinian conflict not just as a political dispute, but as a core religious and moral struggle. For them, Israel was an occupier of sacred Islamic land, and it was the duty of all Muslims to support the Palestinians in their fight for a state of their own. This ideological commitment was a powerful tool for Iran to project its influence beyond its borders. By championing the Palestinian cause, Iran was able to position itself as a defender of the oppressed across the Muslim world. This helped the new government build legitimacy both at home and abroad. It was a way to unite different groups under a common banner of resistance against Israel and its powerful ally, the United States. This stance allowed Iran, a Persian and predominantly Shia nation, to bridge the historical divide with the Arab and largely Sunni world. The Palestinian issue was a cause that all Muslims could rally behind, and Iran seized the opportunity to lead the charge, challenging the authority of Arab monarchies that it viewed as corrupt and too friendly with the West. This support was not just limited to words and political statements. Iran began to provide financial, military and logistical support to various Palestinian groups that were committed to armed resistance against Israel. While the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, eventually pursued a path of negotiation with Israel, Iran focused its backing on more militant factions that shared its goal of confronting Israel directly. Groups like Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which emerged in the 1980s, found a powerful and willing patron in Tehran. This support fundamentally changed the dynamics of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, empowering groups that rejected any compromise with Israel. Iran's unwavering support for the Palestinians also served a strategic purpose. By backing groups that operated on Israel's borders, Iran could put direct pressure on its new enemy without engaging in a conventional war. This strategy allowed Iran to challenge Israel from a distance, making the conflict a constant and painful reality for the Israeli state. It transformed the local conflict between Israelis and Palestinians into a key battleground in the much larger regional rivalry between Iran and Israel. The Palestinian cause was no longer just a national liberation movement. It was now a central front in Iran's broader struggle for dominance in the Middle East. For many years after the revolution, the conflict between Iran and Israel was not fought on a traditional battlefield. Instead, it took the form of a shadow war, a series of secret operations, covert attacks, and intelligence battles fought far from the public eye. Both countries engaged in actions designed to harm the other's interests, but they would rarely admit their involvement. This allowed them to hurt each other without triggering a full-scale direct war, which would be devastating for both sides and, honestly, the entire region. This undeclared conflict has been waged across land, sea, air, and even in cyberspace. Israel, deeply concerned about Iran's nuclear program, has been accused of carrying out numerous covert operations inside Iran. These actions were intended to slow down or sabotage what Israel sees as a program to develop nuclear weapons. One of the most famous examples was the Stuxnet computer virus, a highly sophisticated piece of malware discovered in 2010. Believed to be a joint US-Israeli creation, Stuxnet infected and damaged the centrifuges at Iran's uranium enrichment facilities. In addition to cyber attacks, several high-profile Iranian nuclear scientists have been assassinated over the years, with many observers pointing the finger at Israel. The most dramatic of these was the 2020 killing of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, who was ambushed and killed by a satellite-controlled machine gun. On the other side, Iran has been accused of orchestrating attacks against Israeli and Jewish targets around the world. These attacks were often carried out by its allies or intelligence operatives. For example, in the 1990s, devastating bombings targeted the Israeli embassy and a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Both attacks were widely attributed to Hezbollah, acting with Iran's support. In more recent years, Iran has been blamed for plotting attacks on Israeli tourists in countries like Thailand, India, and Georgia. The shadow war has also extended to the seas, with both countries accusing each other of attacking commercial ships and oil tankers linked to their rival. This long-running shadow war created a climate of deep mistrust and constant tension. Each attack, whether confirmed or denied, added another layer of hostility to the relationship. It became a deadly game of chess, with each side trying to anticipate the other's next move while planning its own. The goal was to weaken the enemy, disrupt its plans, and send a clear message of strength without crossing the line into open warfare. However, this dangerous game has become harder to control over time, with the shadows giving way to more direct and visible confrontations. A key strategy in the long struggle between Iran and Israel has been the use of so-called proxy wars. A proxy, just to be clear, is a group or country that fights on behalf of a more powerful state. Instead of fighting each other directly, Iran and Israel have supported opposing sides in conflicts across the Middle East. This approach allows both countries to advance their own interests and weaken their rival, all without risking a direct military clash. Over time, this strategy has turned several countries, most notably Lebanon, Syria, and the Palestinian territories, into battlegrounds for this regional rivalry. Iran in particular has been, very successful in building a network of allied groups. This network is often referred to as the Axis of Resistance. It's an alliance of governments and armed militias across the region that share Iran's anti-Israel and anti-American stance. The most powerful member of this axis is Hezbollah in Lebanon. Founded back in the 1980s with Iran's help, Hezbollah has grown into a formidable military and political force. It now possesses a vast arsenal of rockets and missiles aimed at Israel, creating a major deterrent on Israel's northern border. Iran provides Hezbollah with funding, training, and advanced weapons, making it a powerful proxy that can act on Iran's behalf. This relationship, honestly, allows Iran to project its power all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. In Syria, the civil war that began in 2011 provided yet another arena for the proxy conflict. Iran intervened heavily to support the government of President Bashar al-Assad, another key ally. It sent military advisors and supported thousands of Shia militiamen from countries like Iraq and Afghanistan to fight on Assad's behalf. For Iran, keeping Assad in power was crucial because Syria provides a land bridge to supply Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel, seeing this as a major threat, has carried out hundreds of airstrikes in Syria over the past decade. These strikes target Iranian military bases, weapons convoys and personnel, all in an effort to prevent Iran from establishing a permanent military presence so close to its border. The conflict in Gaza is another clear example of this proxy war. Iran is a major supporter of Palestinian groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad, providing them with the funds and technology to build rockets and other weapons to use against Israel. For Iran, supporting these groups is a way to keep pressure on Israel's southern front and champion the Palestinian cause. For Israel, these groups are terrorist organizations that pose a direct threat to its citizens. The recurring wars in Gaza are, in many ways, a reflection of the larger Iran-Israel conflict, with each side using the local struggle to advance its regional agenda. This use of proxies has made the Middle East an incredibly complex and, honestly, dangerous place. In recent years, the long-running shadow war between Iran and Israel has become, well, much less shadowy. The conflict has spilled out into the open, with both countries engaging in more direct and public military actions against each other. This dangerous escalation has raised fears of a full-blown regional war. The period from 2024 to 2025 has been particularly tense, marked by a series of high-stakes attacks and counterattacks. The undeclared rules of the game, which had kept the conflict contained for decades, appear to be breaking down as both sides show a greater willingness to take risks and strike each other directly. One of the key triggers for this escalation was a series of high-profile assassinations. In July 2024, the political leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, was killed in an explosion while visiting Tehran. Iran and Hamas immediately blamed Israel for the attack, which was a bold strike deep inside Iranian territory. This was followed by more targeted killings of leaders allied with Iran. In early June 2025, a major blow was dealt to Iran's axis of resistance when Israeli missiles killed Hassan Nasrallah, the powerful and long-serving leader of Hezbollah, in Beirut. These assassinations were seen by Iran as a direct challenge, pushing the conflict to a new and more perilous level. The ongoing war in Gaza, which has seen intense Israeli bombardment since late 2023, has served as the backdrop for these rising tensions. Iran has been a vocal critic of the Israeli campaign and has warned repeatedly that the conflict could spread. As Israel has struck Iranian-linked targets in Lebanon and Syria, the risk of a wider confrontation has grown. The simmering proxy war in Syria has heated up, with more frequent and deadly Israeli airstrikes aimed at preventing Iran from entrenching itself militarily. Iran, in turn, has used its allies in Iraq and Yemen to launch drone and missile attacks toward Israel. The most dramatic moment came in June 2025, when the conflict moved from proxy battles and assassinations to direct state-on-state fire. In response to the recent assassinations and ongoing hostilities, Iran launched a barrage of ballistic missiles directly at Israel. This was a major escalation and a clear departure from its previous strategy of relying on proxies. It was the first time Iran had attacked Israel directly from its own soil. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu immediately vowed to retaliate, bringing the two arch-rivals closer to a direct, all-out war than ever before. The shadow war had ended, and a new, more dangerous chapter of open confrontation had begun. The prospect of peace, or honestly, even normal relations between Iran and Israel, seems almost impossible in the current political climate. The deep-seated ideological hostility, combined with decades of conflict, has created a chasm that is incredibly difficult to bridge. For the current leadership in Iran, recognizing Israel would mean abandoning one of the core principles of the 1979 revolution. The Islamic Republic's identity is deeply intertwined with its opposition to Israel and its support for the Palestinian cause. Any move toward normalization would be seen as a betrayal of its revolutionary ideals and could threaten the stability of the regime itself. On the Israeli side, Iran is viewed as the single greatest threat to its national security. Israeli leaders from across the political spectrum are united in their belief that Iran's nuclear program is an existential danger that must be stopped. They also see Iran's support for groups like Hezbollah and Hamas as a constant and direct threat to Israeli citizens. After decades of proxy wars, shadow operations, and now direct missile attacks, the level of mistrust is at an all-time high. For Israel, any negotiation with the current Iranian government would be seen as appeasing a regime committed to its destruction. The changing landscape of the Middle East has only complicated the situation. In recent years, several Arab countries, including the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, have signed peace and normalization agreements with Israel, known as the Abraham Accords. These deals have shifted old alliances and created a new regional bloc that is wary of Iran's influence. While these agreements show that peace with Israel is possible for some Muslim nations, they have also isolated Iran further. Iran views these deals as a betrayal of the Palestinian cause and as an attempt by its Arab rivals to form an anti-Iran coalition with Israel, thus deepening the regional divide. The geopolitical realities that once brought Iran and Israel together as partners have, completely disappeared. The common threats they faced in the 1960s and 70s, such as Soviet influence and Arab nationalism, are no longer relevant. Today they are locked in a zero-sum competition for power and influence across the Middle East. Each side sees the other's gain as its own loss. Until there is a fundamental change in the ideology of the Iranian regime or a dramatic shift in the strategic thinking of both countries, the path to peace remains blocked. The conflict has become a core part of their national identities, making any form of reconciliation a distant and, honestly, unlikely dream. The journey of Iran and Israel from pragmatic partners to sworn enemies is a defining story of the modern Middle East. What began as a quiet alliance based on shared strategic interests was shattered by the ideological earthquake of the 1979 Iranian Revolution. That single event rewrote the rules of the region, replacing a relationship of convenience with one of enduring and bitter hostility. The new Islamic Republic of Iran adopted an identity built on opposition to the United States and Israel, while Israel came to see the revolutionary regime in Tehran as the primary threat to its existence and regional stability. This rivalry has been fought on multiple fronts for over 4 decades. It began as a war of words and symbols, with Iran championing the Palestinian cause and declaring Israel an illegitimate state. It soon evolved into a deadly shadow war, fought through covert operations, cyber attacks, and assassinations. Most destructively, it has been waged through proxy conflicts that have destabilized countries like Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, causing immense human suffering. This strategy allowed both nations to bleed each other without engaging in a direct and catastrophic war, turning much of the region into their personal chessboard. The recent shift from covert actions to direct military strikes, such as Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel, marks a dangerous new phase in this long conflict. The thin veil of deniability has been lifted, and the risk of a regional war, which could draw in global powers, is now higher than ever. The conflict is no longer just about ideology, or the Palestinian cause. It is a raw struggle for regional dominance. Both Iran and Israel see themselves as the leading power in the Middle East, and they view the other as the main obstacle to achieving that status. Looking to the future, the path to de-escalation, let alone peace, appears to be blocked by insurmountable walls of mistrust, ideology, and strategic competition. The fundamental drivers of the conflict remain firmly in place, and the cycle of attacks and reprisals continues to deepen the animosity. The story of Iran and Israel serves as a powerful reminder of how profoundly political revolutions can reshape international relations, and how rivalries, once established, can take on a life of their own, defining the fate of a region for generations to come. Their enmity is now a central, organizing principle of Middle Eastern geopolitics.